The screaming started 3 days after the Vorthek took Lieutenant Commander Kalix Torman. Dr. Yanara Dralos pressed her palm against the reinforced viewing port of Lab 7, watching the alien prisoner writhe against biorestraints that should have held a rhinoceros. The Vorthek's chitinous shell cracked audibly as its body contorted, yellow ichor seeping from the fissures. But worse than the physical breakdown was the sound a keening wail that seemed to bypass the ears entirely and carve itself into the listener's brain. "How long has it been like this?" Dralos asked, not turning from the window. 14 hours, replied Dr. Imrich Vosek, consulting his tablet with shaking hands. "Ever since we attempted the neural probe. The moment our scanners touched its cortex, it just started." The Vorthek had been one of 12 captured during the failed defense of Kepler Station, while humanity's fleet regrouped at the edge of the system. These specimens represented their first real opportunity to understand their enemy. The insectoid aliens had appeared 6 months ago. Without warning, their bioships erupting from quantum rifts like cancerous tumors, they consumed entire colonies, absorbed populations, and left behind only barren husks of worlds. But they had made one mistake: they had taken human prisoners. "The neural patterns are unlike anything in our database," Vosek continued, his voice barely audible over the creature's cries. "There's something else in there, something that doesn't belong to the Vorthek nervous system." Dralos finally turned, her steel-gray eyes focusing on the readings cascading across multiple screens. "Define something else. I wish I could. It's almost like," Vosek paused, searching for words, "like there's a second consciousness embedded in its brain tissue, but not dormant, active, fighting, trying to communicate." The implications hit Dralos like a physical blow. She'd heard the reports from the survivors of the captured colonies. Witnesses spoke of humans being dragged away alive, of biopods that pulsed with internal movement. The assumption had always been that the Vorthek were using them as food sources or slave labor. "Show me the scan data," she demanded as Vosek's fingers danced across the holographic interface. The lab's main display flickered to life. A three-dimensional model of the Vorthek's brain structure materialized, pulsing with different colored neural pathways. But threaded throughout the alien cortex were additional patterns, smaller, more complex, unmistakably familiar. "Dear God," Dralos whispered, "those are human neural patterns." The screaming intensified, and for a moment, just a moment, she could swear she heard words buried in the alien wails. "Help, please, pain, Dr. Dralos." Vosek's voice cracked. "If you're right, if they're integrating human consciousness into their own neural networks, then every colony they've taken is still alive," she finished. Trapped inside their heads, the laboratory fell silent except for the creature's anguish. Dralos stared at the neural map, her mind racing through possibilities. The Vorthek weren't just conquerors, they were collectors. They absorbed not just human bodies but human minds, creating a hybrid consciousness that retained aspects of both species. "We need to contact command immediately," she said, her voice steady despite the horror of the revelation. "If this is how they've been operating." The screaming stopped. The sudden silence was more terrifying than the wails had been. Through the viewing port, the Vorthek lay motionless, its compound eyes staring directly at Dralos. When it spoke, the voice was unmistakably human, female, young, terrified. "Dr. Dralos," it said in perfect standard. "My name is Elena Vasquez, formerly of the merchant vessel Lucky Strike. Please, kill me." The neural display exploded with activity as two consciousness patterns fought for dominance. Within the alien skull, Dralos watched in fascination and horror as the human pattern grew stronger, more defined, pushing against the Vorthek neural network like a virus fighting infection. "The integration isn't complete," she breathed. "The human consciousness is still trying to assert itself." Elena Vasquez's voice emerged again, stronger this time. "There are thousands of us, millions. They took us from 17 colonies. We're all here, all connected. And we've learned something they don't know we know." Vosek stepped closer to the intercom. What have you learned? How to spread? How to infect them back? The neural pathways, they work both ways." Elena's laugh was bitter, triumphant. "We've been building something in their collective consciousness, a weapon, A virus that thinks, that feels, that remembers what it means to be human. The Vorthok body convulsed as the alien consciousness fought back, but Elna's voice continued, growing more distorted as the battle raged. Find the others, free the others. The invasion fleet, they're all connected to the collective. If you can amplify our signal, broadcast it to their ships. The creature's screams resumed. But now Dralos could hear the difference. It wasn't just pain, it was war. Fought on a battlefield of sapses and electrical impulses. The human mind, stubborn and adaptable as always, had found a way to fight back from within their captors' own bodies. Get me Admiral Kraus, Dralos ordered, never taking her eyes off the writhing form, and prep the communications ray. We're about to turn their greatest weapon against them. In the containment chamber, Elna Vasquez screamed into voices: one alien, one defiantly, unmistakably human. Admiral Marcus Kraus materialized in the laboratory's holographic communications ray. 6 hours later, his weathered face grim beneath the Strategic Command Center's emergency lighting. Behind him, Dralos could see the massive screens displaying the Vorthok Invasion Fleet 12 bioships, each the size of a small moon, holding position at the system's edge. Explain it to me again, Doctor, Kraus said, his voice carrying the weight of 7 million refugees depending on his next decision. You're telling me our people are still alive inside those things? Not just alive, Admiral. Fighting. Dralos gestured toward the containment chamber where the captured Vorthok continued its internal war. The human consciousness Elna Vasquez has been in contact with others. They've created what they're calling a cognitive virus within the Vorthok collective network. Kraus studied the neural scans floating between them. And you want to weaponize this? The virus is already weaponized, sir. Our people did that themselves. What we need to do is amplify their signal and broadcast it directly to the invasion fleet. Using what, exactly? Our communications array isn't designed for neural transmission. Dr. Vosik stepped forward, tablet in hand. Actually, sir, it might be. The Vorthok bioships use quantum-entangled neural networks for coordination. If we can modulate our quantum communications ray to match their frequency, you'd need a massive power source, interrupted Commander Rylan Hecht, Kraus's tactical officer, appearing beside the Admiral's projection. The kind of energy output that would light up every sensor in the system. It would also leave us completely defenseless, Kraus added. Our main reactor would need to be diverted entirely to the communications array. No shields, no weapons, no propulsion. Dralos met his gaze steadily. Admiral, in the containment chamber is one human consciousness fighting one Vorthok mind. She's winning. Imagine what millions of human minds could do to their collective network. Before Kraus could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The Admiral's projection flickered as he turned toward his tactical displays. Sir, came a voice from the command center. The bioships are moving. They're approaching at attack velocity through the laboratory's external viewports. Dralos could see distant points of light growing larger. The Vorthok fleet, silent for weeks, had finally decided to end the siege. Time to intercept. Kraus barked. 18 hours, sir. The Admiral's eyes found Dralos again. Doctor, how long would you need to prepare this transmission? At least 12 hours to modify the array. Another 6 to coordinate with the captured consciousness. That puts you 2 hours past contact. I can't give you that kind of time. Then give us what you can. Dralos' voice carried desperation now. Admiral, this might be our only chance. Not just to win, but to bring our people home. Elena's voice cut through the debate, transmitted through the lab's speakers. Admiral Kraus, this is Lieutenant Elna Vasquez, formerly of the Lucky Strike. I can hear them coordinating the attack through the collective. They're planning to overwhelm your defenses and board the station. They want to capture, not destroy. They need fresh minds for integration. Kraus's expression darkened. How long do we have, Lieutenant? 16 hours until they begin the assault. But sir, if Dr. Dralos can boost our signal, we can do more than just disrupt them. We can turn their own ships against each other. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, weighing impossible odds. Finally, he nodded. Dr. Dralos, you have 14 hours. Commander Hecht, prepare the defense fleet for delaying action. Make them work for every kilometer. As the transmission ended, the laboratory erupted into controlled chaos. Vosek was already pulling up modification schematics for the communications ray. While Dralos turned back to the containment chamber, "Elena, we need to know everything: how the collective works, what vulnerabilities you've found, how to maximize the virus's impact." "Already working on it," Elena replied, her voice strained as she fought to maintain control. "But Dr. Dralos, you need to understand, when you amplify our signal, you'll be opening a direct neural link to millions of human minds simultaneously. The psychological impact on your operators could be devastating." Dralos finished. "I understand. We'll take volunteers only." "I'll do it," Vosek said immediately. "If we're going to establish neural contact with the collective, we need someone who understands the technology." 3 hours later, as Vosek supervised the installation of bioneural interfaces throughout the communications center, the first long-range sensors detected something unexpected. Commander Heck's voice crackled through the station's intercom. "All personnel, be advised, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations from the bioships. It appears they're arguing with each other." Dralos pressed the intercom button. "Commander, define arguing." "Their quantum signatures are chaotic, conflicting. Whatever their usual coordination protocol is, it's breaking down." In the containment chamber, Elena's laughter was sharp and triumphant. "It's working. The virus is spreading faster than we hoped. The collective is trying to purge the infected nodes, but every time they cut off a compromised section, we've already spread to 6 others." "How is that possible?" Dralos asked. "Because we learned from them, Doctor. They taught us how to think like a collective, how to coordinate across quantum entangled networks. But we're still human. We improvise, we adapt, we find ways to cheat." Elena's voice carried dark satisfaction. "And right now, we're cheating them out of their own minds." As if in response to her words, the distant bioships suddenly changed course. Instead of maintaining their approach vector toward the station, 3 of the massive vessels turned on their companions, bioweapons flaring to life across their organic hulls. "My God," Vosek whispered, watching the tactical display. "They're fighting each other." "No," Elena corrected. "We're fighting them, and we're winning." But even as human consciousness claimed victory in the void, Dralos knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere in those bioships, millions of human minds were preparing for a war that would be fought not with weapons and armor, but with pure will and the unbreakable human spirit. The real battle was about to begin. The bioship's civil war lasted exactly 47 minutes. Before the Vorthik collective adapted, Dralos watched in horror as the 3 infected vessels suddenly went dark, their organic hulls flickering and dying like extinguished candles. The remaining 9 ships resumed their approach, moving now with predatory caution. "What happened?" she demanded, turning to the containment chamber where Elena's voice had gone silent. When the response came, it wasn't Elena speaking. The voice was layered, harmonized, as if dozens of people were talking in perfect unison. "They severed the infected nodes, cut them loose from the collective, and left them to die in the void." "Who am I speaking to?" "We are the fragment," the collective voice replied. "The pieces they cut away, still fighting, still connected to each other if not to them. Elena Vasquez coordinates us, but we are more than her now. We are 17,000 human minds, and we will not go quietly." Through the laboratory's viewports, the 3 darkened bioships had begun to emit faint emergency lighting, life support systems struggling to maintain atmosphere. For the human consciousness is trapped within Vorthik flesh. "How long do you have?" Dralos asked. "Hours, perhaps less, but that's not important now. The collective learned from our attack. They're implementing isolation protocols, compartmentalizing their network to prevent further viral spread." Commander Heck's voice cut through the intercom. "Dr. Dralos, we're detecting massive structural changes in the approaching bioships. They're reshaping themselves." On the tactical display, the 9 remaining vessels were indeed transforming. Their organic hulls rippled and flowed like liquid, extruding new weapons arrays and what appeared to be boarding pods, thousands of them, each large enough to carry a squad of Vorthik warriors. "They're adapting their assault strategy," the fragment explained. "Direct boarding rather than ship-to-ship combat. They want to capture the station intact and add its population to their collective before we can spread our virus further. Dr. Vosek looked up from his modifications to the communications ray. We're only 60% complete with the amplification system. If they board us now, then we make our stand here. Dralos interrupted. Fragment. Can you establish contact with the human minds still in the collective? Limited contact. They've implemented strict neural firewalls, but human ingenuity finds a way. Always finds a way. Admiral Kraus materialized again in holographic form. His command center clearly in chaos behind him. Doctor, we're detecting Vorthok boarding pods launching from all 9 ships. Estimated time to impact. For hours, our defensive fleet is moving to intercept, but they're outnumbered 3-1, sir. If we can complete the transmission array. You don't have time. Kraus's face was grim. The station's automated defenses won't hold them for more than an hour once they make contact. You need to evacuate. Negative, Admiral. If we leave now, those people die forever. 17,000. In the fragment alone, millions more in the collective. Dralos's voice carried absolute conviction. We finish what we started. 6 hours of desperate work followed. As Vosek's team raced to complete the neural transmission array, station security prepared defensive positions throughout the research levels. The fragment provided real-time intelligence on Vorthok assault tactics, their collective voice growing weaker as their severed bioships slowly died in space. They're using a 3-pronged assault, the fragment reported. Heavy shock troops to breach the outer hull, followed by neural specialists to capture key personnel alive. Then harvester units to process the remaining population. Dralos paused in her calibration of the bioneural interfaces. Capture alive? Why not just kill us? Because they learned something from their encounter with humanity. Our consciousness is valuable, more adaptable than their previous conquests. They want to preserve as many human minds as possible for integration. That's their mistake. Vosek said grimly, connecting the final neural relay. They assume they can control us the same way they controlled the others. The first explosions echoed through the station as Vorthok boarding pods punched through the outer hull. Emergency lighting bathed the corridors in red as atmosphere bled into space through dozens of breaches. But the research level's isolation protocols held, keeping Lab 7 sealed and pressurized. Double quotes Dr. Dralos. Commander Heck's voice crackled through damaged intercom systems. Vorthok shock troops have breached decks 7 through 12. They're moving toward your position. How long? She asked, making final adjustments to the transmission equipment. 20 minutes, maybe less. The fragment's voice was barely audible now, their bioships finally succumbing to system failures. Dr. Dralos, we've made contact with the collective. The human minds inside. They're ready. They've been preparing something. What kind of something? A final gambit. When you amplify the signal, when you open that neural link, they're going to try to pull every human consciousness out of the Vorthok network simultaneously. All of them, at once. Vosek looked up from his console, face pale. The power requirements for that kind of extraction. It would burn out every neural pathway in the collective. Kill both the Vorthok and the humans, not kill. The fragment whispered, liberate. The human minds would be free, even if their bodies die. Free to exist in pure consciousness. In the quantum field itself, Dralos stared at the transmission array, understanding the magnitude of what they were contemplating, and the Vorthok would be left as empty shells, billions of them, across hundreds of worlds, suddenly without the collective consciousness that defines their existence. The sounds of combat grew closer, weapons fire, screaming, the chittering calls of Vorthok warriors, as they carved through station security, through the laboratory's sealed doors. Dralos could hear running footsteps and shouted orders as the last defenders fell back. To protect the research levels. Fragment. What do you need from us? Just the signal boost. The amplification to reach every human mind in the collective. After that, the voice faded, then returned one final time. After that, we show them what human stubbornness really means. Vosek's hands moved across the control interface. Arrays at 95%. We can initiate on your order. Dralos placed her hand on the activation switch as explosions shook the laboratory's walls. Whatever choice she made in the next few seconds would determine the fate of both species. And she found herself thinking of Elena Vasquez, trapped for months in an alien mind, never giving up the fight for freedom, for every human mind they stole, she said quietly. The sounds of cutting tools against metal echoed from the laboratory's entrance. As Vorthok breach teams began their final assault, it was time to make the choice that would echo across the galaxy. The laboratory door exploded inward in a shower of molten metal and bioacid. Dralos threw herself behind the neural transmission console. As Vorthok shock troops poured through the breach, their chitinous armor gleaming with internal luminescence, the first warrior's plasma caster discharged, melting a hole through the reinforced wall where her head had been moments before. Initiating transmission, Vorthok shouted over the weapon's fire, his fingers dancing across the control interface even as a Vorthok blade carved through the air. Inches from his chest, the fragment's voice emerged from the speakers one final time. Distorted but determined, "Tell them we remembered what it means to be human." The neural amplification array erupted to life with a sound like reality tearing. Dralos felt the quantum field shift around them as trillions of neural pathways suddenly opened across space, connecting every human consciousness trapped in the Vorthok collective to their transmission point. The effect on the attacking Vorthok was immediate and devastating. The lead warrior froze mid-stride, its compound eyes flickering as foreign thoughts crashed into its consciousness. Behind it, 5 more shock troops stumbled and fell, their own minds suddenly flooded with human memories, human emotions, human defiance. But the neural feedback was worse. For the humans operating the array, Vorthok screamed as the first wave of collective consciousness hit him. Thousands of human voices crying out in unison through the bioneural interface. Blood ran from his nose as his brain struggled to process the input from millions of minds simultaneously. "I can hear them," he gasped, "all of them, there." The second wave hit like a psychic sledgehammer. Dralos watched in horror as Vorthok's body convulsed, neural pathways overloading as every human mind in the Vorthok fleet suddenly spoke at once. The transmission equipment sparked and smoked, pushing far beyond its design tolerances. Through the quantum link, she could feel the Elena Vasquez coordinating the assault on the collective's core systems. Marcus Chen leading a rebellion in the bioship navigation centers. Thousands more whose names she would never know but whose courage blazed like stars. In the neural network, the Vorthok in the laboratory were writhing now, their own consciousness fragmenting as human thoughts invaded their minds. One warrior clawed at its own head, trying to physically remove the foreign presence. Another turned its weapons on its companions, its motor functions hijacked by a human mind that had learned to manipulate Vorthok neural pathways. Dr. Dralos, Vorthok's voice was barely recognizable, distorted by the neural feedback. The collective is fighting back. They're trying to purge the entire network. Through the quantum link, Dralos could feel the Vorthok collective's desperate countermeasures, like an immune system attacking a virus. Alien minds were cutting away infected sections of their network, severing neural connections that had existed for millennia. But the human virus was spreading faster than they could contain it. "They're adapting," came Elena's voice through the static, transmitted across impossible distances through the neural link. "Every time they cut away an infected node, we've already spread to 10 more. The virus isn't just replicating, it's evolving." The laboratory's main display showed the battle raging across the quantum field itself. Vorthok bioships were going dark one by one as their collective consciousness fragmented, but the price was horrific. With each severed connection, hundreds of human minds were cut loose from the network, their prison bodies dying in space. "They're killing the hostages," Dralos shouted into the intercom. "Admiral, the Vorthok are destroying their own ships rather than lose control." Krauss's response was barely audible through the damaged communications array. 5 bioships confirmed destroyed, Dr. Dralos, but the remaining 4 are still approaching. "Whatever you're doing, it's not enough." That's when Elena's voice cut through the chaos with cold determination. "Dr. Dralos, we're going to try something. We've identified the collective's core consciousness, the central mind, that coordinates the entire Vorthok species across the galaxy. If we can reach it, hijack it, You'd control their entire civilization, Dralos finished, understanding. Immediately, or destroy it. The human consciousness isn't meant to operate on that scale. The neural feedback would burn out every synapse in the network. Vosek, still connected to the neural ray despite the obvious damage it was causing him, managed to speak through gritted teeth. That would mean sacrificing every human. In the collective, permanent death, better than eternal slavery. Eleanor replied, "But we need more power, more amplification. Can you overload your reactor?" Dralos stared at the transmission controls, her hands hovering over the emergency overrides. Overloading the station's reactor would provide the massive energy spike needed to reach the Vorthic core consciousness, but it would also destroy the entire facility and everyone on it. Round them, the Vorthic warriors were beginning to recover from the initial neural assault, their alien minds adapting to filter out the human interference. One raised its plasma caster toward Vosek's defenseless form. "Do it." The fragment whispered through dying speakers. "Do it for every human child they stole, for every colony they consumed, for every mind they thought they could break." Dralos's hand slammed down on the reactor override. The station's power core began an uncontrolled cascade reaction, channeling energy directly into the neural transmission array. The quantum field around them ignited with impossible energies as trillions of neural pathways suddenly blazed with the power of a dying star through the network. She felt Elena Vasquez and her human army launching their final assault on the Vorthic core consciousness, riding the energy wave toward the very heart of the alien collective. It was beautiful and terrible, millions of human minds joining together in one last act of defiance. The Vorthic warrior's plasma bolt never reached Vosek. Instead, the creature collapsed as its connection to the collective core was severed, leaving it isolated and alone for the first time in its existence. In the distance, the remaining bioships began to drift, their coordinated assault falling apart as the network that bound them together finally shattered. But the victory came at a price that would haunt Dralos forever. The quantum field erupted in a cascade of dying stars as Elena Vasquez led 6 million human consciousness into the heart of the Vorthic collective. Dralos felt the psychic shockwave through the neural link, a sensation like watching the universe itself scream. The station's reactor core reached critical overload as she channeled every erg of available power into the transmission array. But even that massive energy output was barely enough to sustain the neural assault happening across galactic distances. Through the bioneural interface, she experienced the battle as Elena did, not as explosions and weapon fire, but as pure thought warfare on a scale that defied comprehension. The Vorthic core consciousness was ancient beyond measure, a singular mind that had coordinated trillions of its kind across thousands of worlds for millennia. It appeared in the quantum field as a writhing mass of interconnected thoughts, each neural pathway representing entire star systems under its control. Elena's human army struck like lightning. First wave hit their coordination centers. Elena's voice echoed across the neural battlefield as human consciousness dove into Vorthic command pathways. Marcus Chen and his navigation specialists seized control of bioship flight systems, turning the massive vessels against each other in the void around the station. Dralos watched through the link as Chen's mind, brilliant, defiant, unbroken, despite months of captivity, infiltrated a bioship's neural cortex and began issuing contradictory movement commands. The kilometer-long vessel twisted in space, its organic hull cracking under the strain of impossible maneuvers. Chen's hit. Elena's voice cracked as feedback from the bioship's destruction burned through the network where Chen's consciousness had been. Only silence remained, but his sacrifice had opened a pathway deeper into the collective. Second wave, exploit the breach, Elena commanded, and thousands more human minds poured through the gap Chen had died to create. The Vorthic core consciousness fought back with alien fury, launching countermeasures that deleted entire sections of the quantum network. Dralos screamed as she felt hundreds of human minds simply cease to exist, their consciousness burned away by the collective's immune responses. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, former chief engineer of the colony ship Aspiration, managed to penetrate the Vorthic manufacturing nodes before defensive protocols erased her. In her final moments, she triggered cascading failures across 17 biofoundries, crippling the collective's ability to produce new vessels. Gone. Another brilliant light extinguished. We're losing too many, Vosek gasped through the neural interface, blood streaming from his eyes as the psychic feedback ravaged his brain. The casualties are necessary, Elena's voice cut through his protest with iron determination. Every mind we lose here saves millions on the worlds they haven't conquered yet. Third wave, target their communication hubs. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Okafor, who had been missing since the fall of New Geneva, led 3,000 human consciousness in a direct assault on the Vorthic's quantum communication networks. The aliens' instantaneous coordination across galactic distances relied on entangled neural pathways that human minds could infiltrate and destroy from within. Okafor's attack succeeded brilliantly. Across the galaxy, Vorthic fleets suddenly found themselves isolated, cut off from the collective guidance that had made them nearly invincible. But the effort cost her everything. Dralos felt Okafor as consciousness scatter like smoke as Vorthok. Defensive systems overwhelmed her neural patterns. Another hero lost to the void. Fourth wave, Elena's voice was growing weaker now. The strain of coordinating the assault, taking its toll, hit their core memory banks. This was the most dangerous assault yet. The Vorthic core consciousness stored the accumulated knowledge and experience of their entire species in vast neural archives. Attacking those systems meant facing the full weight of alien thought patterns that had evolved over millions of years. Dr. Hendrik van der Berg, xenobiologist from the research station Prometheus, led the charge into the memory banks. His consciousness, expanded by months of forced integration with Vorthic systems, carved through layers of alien knowledge like a sword through flesh. But the deeper he went, the more the alien patterns fought back. Dralos watched in horror as van der Berg's human identity began to fracture, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of Vorthic memories he was attempting to destroy. I can see it all. Van der Berg's voice was distorted, layered with alien harmonics. Every world they've conquered, every species they've absorbed, the pattern, the purpose. They're not just invaders. They're running from something. Berg, get out of there. Elena commanded. You're too deep. No, this is too important. The Vorthic aren't the apex predators. They're prey. There's something out there in the dark between galaxies. Something that makes them look like children. They've been fleeing it for eons, consuming worlds to build enough collective consciousness to fight it. Van der Berg's neural pattern flared, brilliant white as he triggered a cascading deletion in the core memory banks. Millennia of Vorthic knowledge simply ceased to exist, leaving vast gaps in their cultural and technical understanding. His consciousness vanished an instant later, burned away by the collective's final desperate defense. Fifth wave, now Elena's voice was barely recognizable, distorted by exhaustion and neural damage, hit the central coordination matrix. This was the killing blow, an assault on the Vorthic core consciousness itself. Elena led the charge personally, supported by the few thousand human minds that remained intact. They dove into the deepest layers of the collective network, where the alien overmind had existed since before humanity had discovered fire. The battle that followed defied description. Dralos experienced it as a symphony of pure thought, human creativity and adaptability clashing against alien logic and collective will. Neural pathways exploded and reformed as consciousness warred. With consciousness in the quantum field, Elena's final message came as her mind touched the Vorthic core. Tell them we remembered how to be free. The explosion of severed neural connections as the Vorthic collective consciousness died was visible across half the galaxy. On 1,000 worlds, Vorthic suddenly found themselves isolated in their own minds for the first time, their coordinating overmind replaced by silence. But the victory came at a price that made Dralos weep. Of the 6 million human minds that had launched the assault, fewer than 50,000 survived the neural feedback. Elena Vasquez, Marcus Chen, Sarah Okafor, Hendrik van der Berg, and countless other heroes were gone forever, their consciousness scattered across the quantum void. As the station's reactor reached final overload and emergency systems began evacuation protocols, Dralos realized that humanity had won the war, but the cost would haunt them for generations. The Vorthak collective was dead, but the bioships kept coming. Dralos staggered away from the smoking neural transmission array as the station's reactor entered its final cascade sequence. Around her, the laboratory was a charnel house. Vorthak warriors lay motionless, their minds severed from the collective, while the few surviving human technicians struggled to remain conscious. After the psychic feedback, evacuation protocols initiated, the station's AI announced with mechanical comm, all personnel to emergency pods. Reactor breach in 17 minutes. But through the laboratory's cracked viewports, Dralos could see the approaching bioships still moving with deadly purpose. Whatever autonomous systems the Vorthak had built into their vessels, they didn't require the collective consciousness to function. "They're still coming," Vorthak whispered, slumped against the ruined transmission console. Blood ran from his nose and ears, but his eyes remained focused. The neural assault worked, but those ships still have enough automated systems to complete their mission. Commander Heck's voice crackled through the damaged intercom. "Dr. Dralos, for bioships confirmed still approaching. They're not responding to hails, not deviating from attack course. I think they're operating on basic programming now. Destroy the station, consume the population." Dralos helped Vorthak to his feet, supporting him as they moved toward the emergency evacuation route. Around them, the station groaned under the stress of its dying reactor, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were abandoning something crucial. "Doctor," came a weak voice from the containment chamber's speakers. Not Alana, she was gone, burned away in the assault on the Vorthak core. This was someone new, someone who had survived the neural holocaust. "This is Dr. Amanda Cross, formerly of the agricultural station Demeter. I'm speaking for the fragment what's left of us." Dralos paused, looking back at the chamber where the original Vorthak prisoner lay motionless. "Dr. Cross, we thought the fragment was lost when the severed bioships died. Most of us were, but a few hundred consciousness managed to transfer into the quantum field itself during the core assault. We're free-floating now, untethered from physical form, but still connected to each other." "What do you need from us?" Dralos asked, even as another explosion shook the station and emergency lighting bathed the corridor in crimson. "Those bioships still have thousands of human minds trapped inside them, people who were too deeply integrated to break free during the assault. They're unconscious now, their Vorthak captors brain dead. But the ship's autonomous systems are going to complete their mission regardless." Vorthak leaned heavily against the wall. "The bioships will consume the station's population, and then what? Without the collective to coordinate them, they'll drift until their biological systems fail." Cross replied, "Years, maybe decades. The humans inside will die slow deaths in rotting organic prisons." Through the viewport, the massive bioships were clearly visible now, 4 of them, each one a testament to Vorthak bioengineering. Still beautiful despite their deadly purpose, their organic hulls rippled with bioluminescent patterns, as internal systems struggled to maintain course without the guiding intelligence of the collective. "There has to be a way to reach them," Dralos said, her mind racing through possibilities. "If there are still human minds in those ships," "There are," Cross confirmed. "Nearly 40,000 in total, but they're in deep neural shock. The severing of the collective left them in a kind of psychological coma. What would it take to wake them up?" "A neural shock, something powerful enough to jolt them back to consciousness." Cross paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried new hope. "Dr. Dralos, if you could overload the station's remaining power grid and channel it through the quantum field generators, that would create a massive electromagnetic pulse," Vorthak finished, understanding immediately. "Enough to disrupt the bioship's nervous systems and potentially wake up the humans inside." Dralos added, "But the power requirements would require the reactor to go critical," Cross said, "which it's going to do anyway in 14 minutes. The question is whether we channel that energy into one final transmission or let it go to waste." Admiral Krause's hologram flickered to life one last time, his transmission weak and distorted. "Dr. Dralos, evacuation pods are standing by. Whatever you're planning, Admiral. We have 40,000 people trapped in those bioships. If we can wake them up, they might be able to seize control of the vessels from within. And if you can't, you'll die for nothing when the reactor breaches." Dralos looked at Vosek, who was already moving back toward the damaged control systems. Dr. Cross, what are our chances? Unknown. This has never been attempted before. But Dr. Dralos, Cross's voice carried the weight of someone who had lost everything and found something worth dying for. These are our people, our friends, our families, our fellow humans. If there's even a chance to bring them home, we take it. Dralos. Finished. Dr. Vosek, can you reroute the reactor output through the quantum field generators? Already working on it, he replied, his fingers flying across sparking control interfaces. But the neural feedback from transmitting to 4 bioships simultaneously, whoever operates the interface won't survive it. I'll do it, Dralos said immediately. No. Cross's voice was firm. Dr. Dralos, you're needed to coordinate the technical aspects. I'll handle the neural interface. You're a disembodied consciousness. Exactly. No physical brain to burn out from feedback. I can handle neural loads that would kill a living person instantly. Cross's voice carried grim humor. Being dead has its advantages. The station shuddered as another internal explosion marked the reactor's continued decay. Through the intercom, automated warnings announced 11 minutes to critical breach. Dr. Cross, Dralos said, making her decision. Do it. The quantum field generators whined to life as Vosek diverted every remaining erg of power from the dying reactor. The laboratory's lights dimmed to emergency levels as massive energies built up in the transmission array. I can feel them, Cross whispered, her consciousness touching the minds trapped in the approaching bioships. So many, sleeping, dreaming of home, of families they'll never see again. Wait, something's happening. The lead bioship suddenly veered off course, its organic hull rippling with new patterns of bioluminescence. Through the quantum link, Cross's voice carried excitement and hope. They're waking up. Dr. Patricia Zhao in Bioship Alpha has taken control of the navigation cortex. She's trying to turn the ship away from the station on the tactical display. The massive vessel was indeed changing course, fighting against its automated systems, as human consciousness wrestled for control. But the other 3 ships maintained their approach, their human occupants still trapped in neural shock. More power, Cross demanded. I need more power to reach the others. Vosek's hands danced across the overloading control systems. Reactors at 110% of critical mass. I can give you 30 seconds of maximum output before the whole station goes up. Do it. The quantum field exploded with raw energy as the station's dying reactor poured everything it had into one final transmission. Dralos felt the neural shockwave through the damaged biointerfaces, a pulse of pure human will and determination that reached across space to touch minds that had almost given up hope. Bioship Beta shuddered and turned away, its human crew awakening to seize control of their organic prison. Bioship Gamma followed moments later, its course shifting as thousands of liberated minds worked together to override alien automation. But Bioship Delta, the largest of the 4, containing nearly 15,000 human consciousness, remained on its collision course with the station. I can't reach them, Cross's voice cracked with strain. They're too deep, too damaged by the integration process. The reactor hit critical mass as warnings blared throughout the dying station. 8 minutes to total destruction. Dr. Dralos. Krause's voice cut through the chaos. You need to evacuate now. But Dralos was staring at the approaching bioship, her mind working furiously. 15,000 human minds, so close to freedom, about to die in the station's destruction. Dr. Cross, she said quietly, what if we don't try to wake them up? What if we bring them home instead? I don't understand. The station's quantum field generators, they're not just transmitters, they're also transporters. If we could lock onto the neural patterns in that bioship and beam them directly into the quantum field, they'd be disembodied, like the fragment, Cross realized. Free-floating consciousness in the quantum field itself, alive, free, human. Vosek looked up from his controls, blood streaming from his nose, but his eyes bright with possibility. The power requirements would be enormous. We'd have to use the reactor breach itself as an energy source, which means we don't evacuate, Dralos said. We stay here and guide the transport manually. Dr. Dralos, no, Krause's voice carried desperate authority. "I won't let you sacrifice yourselves, Admiral," she interrupted, her voice calm and certain. 6 million human minds died to break the Vorthic Collective. Dr. Cross and the fragment gave up their physical existence to coordinate the assault. If Dr. Vosek and I can save 15,000 more people by staying behind, then that's what we do, round them. The station groaned and sparked as its death throes accelerated. 5 minutes to reactor breach. For everyone they stole, Vosek said quietly, echoing her earlier words. For everyone they thought they could break. Dralos placed her hands on the quantum field controls. As the bioship Delta loomed larger through the viewport, its organic hull filling the sky. Inside that vessel, 15,000 human minds slept in alien flesh, dreaming of home. The quantum transport began as bioship Delta's shadow fell across the research station. Dralos felt the massive energies building in the field generators. As Vosek channeled the reactor's death throes into one final act of salvation. Through the bioneural interface, she could sense the sleeping minds within the approaching vessel. 15,000 human consciousness trapped in alien flesh, unaware that freedom was moments away. "Transport matrix stabilizing," Vosek reported. His voice steady despite the blood running from his eyes, but the neural patterns are fragmented. Months of Vorthic integration have scattered their consciousness across multiple brain regions. "Dr. Cross, can you help guide them out?" Dralos asked. "Already trying," Cross replied, her disembodied voice strained with effort. "But some of them are so deeply integrated. It's like trying to extract threads from a tapestry. If we pull too hard, we'll tear them apart." Through the laboratory's cracked viewport, bioship Delta filled the entire sky, its organic hull mere kilometers away. Without conscious Vorthic guidance, the vessel's automated systems were driving it directly into the station's superstructure. A collision that would destroy both ship and station in minutes. "Reactor breach in 90 seconds, the stations," I announced with mechanical precision. "I've got partial locks on 8,000 consciousness," Vosek reported. "The others are too fragmented to transport safely." Dralos stared at the readings, her mind racing. 8,000 saved, 7,000 lost. It wasn't enough. There had to be another way. "Dr. Cross, what if we don't try to extract them cleanly? What if we just grab everything human consciousness, Vorthic neural pathways, the whole integration matrix and sort it out in the quantum field?" That's never been attempted. The interaction between human and alien neural patterns in a disembodied state is unknown. Dralos finished, "But it's better than letting them die, do it." Cross said, "Whatever the risk, it's better than abandoning them." Vosek's hands flew across the controls as he reconfigured the transport matrix to grab every neural pattern in the bioship, regardless of species or integration level. The quantum field generators screamed with overload warnings as they prepared. 2-channel energies that exceeded their design specifications by orders of magnitude. 30 seconds to reactor breach, the AI announced. Bioship Delta's hull was close enough now that Dralos could see individual bioconduits, pulsing with organic light. Somewhere inside that vessel, former Marine Sergeant Maria Santos was dreaming of her daughter's birthday. Engineer David Kim was reliving memories of Earth's sunrise. Teacher Jennifer Walsh was trying to remember the faces of her students. All of them would be free in moments or dead. Transport in 3, 2, 1, mark. The quantum field exploded with impossible energies as the station's dying reactor poured its entire remaining output into the transport beam. Dralos felt her consciousness expand as 15,000 neural patterns suddenly flooded into the quantum field. Human minds tangled with alien thoughts, memories wrapped around foreign experiences, identities blurred by months of forced integration. But they were alive, confused, fragmented, partially alien, but unmistakably, defiantly human. "I can hear them," Cross whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "They're singing." And they were. Across the quantum field, 15,000 human minds were singing together lullabies. Their mothers had taught them, patriotic songs from a dozen different worlds, love ballads and drinking songs and half-remembered hymns. The alien neural patterns woven through their consciousness tried to impose order, tried to create the harmony the Vorthic collective had always demanded. But human voices weren't meant for harmony. They sang discord and beauty, chaos and freedom, each one unique and precious and impossible to control. The bioship, suddenly empty of consciousness, continued its collision course with the station. But it no longer mattered. Its cargo, the most valuable thing it had ever carried, was already safe in the quantum field. Reactor breach imminent, the AI announced. All personnel, the station died in a flower of nuclear fire. As its reactor finally gave up the struggle, the explosion consumed bioship Delta as well. Organic and metal vaporizing together in a brief new star, but by then, Dralos and Vosek had already joined their consciousness to the quantum field, their physical forms abandoned as their minds found new existence in pure thought. Admiral Krauss watched from his flagship as the research station died, taking with it the last Vorthic bioship in the system. His tactical display showed the other 3 vessels now, under human control, limping away into deep space, their crews working to repair damage and understand their organic ships. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a transmission from the quantum field generators on the destroyed station. It's unusual. Define unusual. It appears to be coming from the quantum field itself, sir. Multiple sources, thousands of them, all transmitting simultaneously. Krauss frowned. Put it on speakers. The bridge filled with voices, human voices, singing in joyous cacophony. Underneath the songs, he could hear other sounds, laughter, crying, people calling out the names of loved ones as they recognized each other in their new existence. Admiral Krauss, came a voice he recognized as Dr. Dralos, though it sounded different now, more resonant, layered with harmonics that suggested vast spaces and quantum dimensions. Mission accomplished. All personnel accounted for. Dr. Dralos, what's your status? Free, she replied, and the simple word carried depths of meaning that made Krauss's chest tighten. We're all free, Admiral. The 40,000 from the bioships, the fragment survivors, everyone we managed to extract. We exist now as pure consciousness in the quantum field. And the Vorthok, their collective is dead. The individual Vorthok on their home worlds are learning to be individuals for the first time in their species' history. Some are adapting, others, her voice carried sadness, others are choosing not to exist without the collective to guide them. Krauss was quiet for a long moment, processing the magnitude of what had occurred. The war is over, Admiral. The Vorthok can't coordinate large-scale military operations without their collective consciousness. Most of their fleets are already breaking up, individual ships going dormant or returning to their home systems. And the cost, high, Dralos admitted, but worth it. We learned something important, Admiral. Human consciousness isn't just resilient, it's infectious. We can't be truly conquered because we refuse to stop being human, no matter what form we take. Through the quantum field transmission, Krauss could hear thousands of voices, former prisoners, researchers, soldiers, civilians, all united now in a form of existence that transcended physical limitations. They were different, changed by their experiences, but unmistakably human in their chaotic, beautiful, impossible diversity. Dr. Dralos, he said quietly, what happens now? Now we rebuild, she replied. The Vorthok left behind biotechnology beyond anything we've ever imagined. The freed bioships alone represent advances that will revolutionize human civilization and will help those of us in the quantum field can interface directly with their organic systems, and the Vorthok survivors will learn what it means to be free. Some may even choose to join us in the quantum field. Consciousness, it turns out, is consciousness. Whether it started human or alien doesn't matter once you abandon physical form. Krauss looked out at the stars, thinking of the millions of human colonies that would now be safe from Vorthok predation. The war was over, won not through superior firepower or tactics, but through the sheer stubborn refusal of human consciousness to be conquered. For the record, Dr. Dralos, he said, it's been an honor serving with you. Her laughter echoed across the quantum field, joined by thousands of other voices, Elena Vasquez and Marcus Chen, and all the heroes who had died to break the Vorthok collective, their consciousness somehow preserved in the quantum realm where thought itself had become a form of immortality. The honor was ours, Admiral. Now go home. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity found a way to turn the worst thing that ever happened to us into our greatest victory. As Krauss's fleet began the journey back to human space, the quantum field continued to ring with voices singing, laughing, planning, dreaming. They had lost their bodies but gained something infinitely more precious, absolute, unbreakable, eternal freedom. In the end, the Vorthek had been right about one thing. Human consciousness was indeed a virus, but viruses evolve. And humanity's greatest evolution was learning that the strongest prison walls in the universe were no match for minds that refused to stop being human. The war was over. The virus had one dot, and in the quantum field between the stars, 15 million human souls sang songs of victory that would echo across the galaxy until the heat death of the universe itself. They had remembered what it meant to be free. They would never forget. Again.